We'd like to thank everyone who's here. Thank you to MBRL for inviting us to not only embody our culture, but to celebrate it for Philippine Independence Day. We're so grateful to be living in a country that allows us to be Filipino. Not only allows us, but allows us to celebrate being Filipino. Isn't that great? So in that, we had come prepared to read excerpts from our work and excerpts from other people's work, other Filipinos. But when I got here, I was very surprised, pleasantly surprised, to see a book by Barbara Jane Reyes. It is very hard to find this book. So I thought, okay, you know what? I'm not even going to read from my book. I'm just going to read from hers. So let me read an excerpt to start. And I love her because she is a Filipino-American poet. And I guess in a way she is the first person to ever look like me, to ever do the things that I wanted to do, you know, like as a representation of what I wanted to do. So this poem is called Invocation to Daughters 2. We mourn for the things that were taken, knowing and name, a body at peace. Our poisons were drained from our secret places. We are prickly and complicated. Once we were luminous, now we are bitter and beastly. Once we were a sight to behold, now we are endangered. We mourn our horns hewn from our skulls, ground into powder. We molt our weathered cells to fertilize the earth beneath our bellies. We creep and contract our bodies until we are armored and brilliant shells. We are salt and sanguine. We are the dark water's weight. So this is from the book Invocation to Daughters, and that poem was called Invocation to Daughters 2. Check this out in the library. It is here. I was very excited to see it here. So now I would like to introduce you guys to the rest of the Filipinos who are here. I am Danabel Gutierrez. I'm sorry, I didn't say that. Hi. My name is Danabel Gutierrez. I am a poet. I am a writer. And I do have my books here as well. But I'd like to introduce you to Trixie Danielle, who is a writer as well and a poet. And today she will be reading for us. One moment. Let me find her. Yes. So Trixie Danielle will be speaking about her relationship with language as part of her heritage and identity. She will be reading poems and excerpts from a Hiligaynon poem, Ambahanon sa Kagab-ihon by Ariston M. Echeverria. I'm very sorry that if I butchered that. I don't speak Hiligaynon. So the Philippines has like several languages. Hiligaynon is one of them. Tagalog is one of them. I don't speak Hiligaynon. Excerpts from the essay of John Iremil E. Teodoro's Echoes of the Babaylan, singing 21st century West Visayan literature, a script reading of Lola Bashang in the UAE by 63 Collective, adapted from Peta's Mga Kwento ni Lola Bashang, a storytelling of Ang Binibining Tumalo sa Hari, written by Severino Reyes and retold by Christine Belen. And lastly, she will be doing a performance of her own poem, IVR. Please welcome to the stage, Trixie Danielle.
Hi, good evening. Thank you. Thank you, Danabel. So it's going to be a long ride. Yes. So the first one is I'm gonna read a short Hiligaynon poem. So Hiligaynon is my mother tongue. Philippines has, I think, over 180 languages, and one of it is Hiligaynon. And then after that, I'll dive deeper onto some of the Hiligaynon history. And so, okay, I'm gonna start with Ambahanon sa Kagab-ihon by Ariston M. Echeverria. Ang bugos nga kalibutan, nagalingig sang imo balita. Simbahan ka sang kalimutan. Pakpakan ka nga dili makita. Ang kumbong nimo magsagilom, Dili nga mas-a mauyatan. Sang kapwa ikaw makapaggalom. Isa ka sang tanhaga sa mga binuhatan. Himaya ka sang makahagugma. Sa kalinong, imo sila ginakumbungan. Sang imo bituon, sang manungugma. Imo sila tanan, ginapurungan. Pugad ka sang dalamguhanon, sang tanan. Manggaranon, kag timawa. Subong man, sining ambahanon, nga nabuyok sang akon kaawa. And of course, the English translation. So, it's called Night Song by Ariston M. Echevarria. The whole world listens to your message. You are the cathedral of oblivion, wide-winged and unseen. Your dark mantle is ever untouchable. You shadow sunshine. You are a marvel of creation. You are the delight of lovers. You enshroud them in quiet, and with the stars of the prophets, you crown them all. You are the cradle of dreams for all, the wealthy and the poor. And also for this song, Shape of My Compassion. So yeah, that's the first one. And the second one is an excerpt from an essay by John Eremil E. Teodoro, which he was actually trying to explore the Hiligaynon language from the Babaylans. So he wanted to let the people know how the Babaylans had endured and survived Hiligaynon language throughout 4 centuries of colonization, because the Babaylans were there from the pre-colonial Spanish era. When we look closely at the map of the Philippine archipelago, Echoes of the Babaylan Singing, the 21st Century West Visayan Literature by John Eramil E. Teodoro. When we look closely at the map of the Philippine archipelago, we will see the Panay Island is the gut center of the Philippines. It is no wonder that the center of the Babaylan tradition is Panay, which was called Madias by the Malay settlers, who arrived in the archipelago in 3 waves, from 200 BC to 1500 AD. The island was earlier called Aninipay, named after a plant once abundant on the island by the Ati or the Negritos, who came by the land bridges centuries before Indonesians and Malaysians did. This Babaylan tradition, shared by different tribes of Panay, Bukidnon, is the wellspring of 21st century West Visayan writing, especially in the native languages of Kinaraya, Hiligaynon, and Aklanon. The archaic form of Kinaraya is the language of the 13 Panay epics, loosely called Hinilawod, which Liz later on will share with us. Babaylanism is an ancient Panayanon religion. The Babaylan was the spiritual leader in the pre-colonial barangay that acted as both priest and healer, the medium between the physical and the spiritual worlds. When the Spaniards colonized the Philippines, Babaylanism was declared a pagan religion. The Babaylan rituals were branded as acts of devil by the friars. The Babaylan went up to the mountains of the central Panay, far from the reach of the foreign colonizers. And so Babaylan lived and well until in Panay. Yes, even after almost 4 centuries of Spanish colonialism and more than a century of American colonialism and neo-colonialism. It survived not just in the mountains, but also in the villages, by the rivers and the seas, as a tradition, way of healing and living with nature. The name Panay, just like the name Filipinas for our country, was given by the Spanish colonizers, Haipan. Haipan means there is food. For when the Spaniards in Cebu, under the leadership of Legazpi, had food shortage, they explored the islands, found Panay abundant. Of course, colonization made Kinaraya Hispanized and Anglicized today. But it doesn't matter. What matters is the power of this language to survive and endure. So, yeah, that's it. And then, so, are you ready for the reading? So I will, there's a little help from
Test.
from my friends over here. So we will read an excerpt called Lola Basyang in the UAE. Lola Basyang in the UAE was adapted from Severino Reyes's Ang Mga Kwento ni Lola Basyang. And Severino Reyes, he used the pen name Lola Basyang, but and he is also the father of Philippine drama. So, Lola Basyang in the UAE is also grounded and written around a capstone project by a second-generation migrant who went to New York University. So he is a New York University alumni, and we got his research. His name is Joshua Oyos. Okay. Okay, ready? Ready. Curtain. Alam mo ba, Apo, pretty ang kaibigan mo, pero bakit parang ang suplada?
No, Lola. Ali is nice. Hindi lang po siya sanay sa inyo.
Oh, yung lola nang hindi sanay.
At ano ang ibig mong sabihin?
She's a little introverted din po kasi, Lola. She feels awkward around other people.
Naninibago kayo sa mga bata ngayon, ma. Lalo na sa mga hindi lumaki sa Pilipinas.
Excuse me, I am a woke lola. You are cancelled. Pero sa true lang, anak, bakit ba ang ibang Gen X parents ngayon hindi nyo na tinuturuan magsalita ng diretsong Tagalog o kaya Hiligaynon o kaya kahit anong salita sa Pilipinas?
Well, mas practical lang kasi, ma. Dahil dito na sila lumaki. Yung mga nakakasalamuhan nila, puro mga Inglesero na. At isa pa, yung mga batang laki dito, karamihan sa ibang bansa na nag-aaral. At sa ibang bansa na rin nagsisipagtrabaho at namumuhay. Kaya wala na ring point, ma. Buti na rin at doon sila ma-immerse.
Sorry, Dad, I beg to disagree. Yes, you and Mom brought me here when I was 8-ish, but I still have that vivid memory of my childhood back in Iloilo. I love it so much there. I miss playing patintero, Chinese garter, and 1020 with Kathy and Lester. Even our story time with Lola, I don't want to forget anything about that. I want more of my culture, more of my roots, but all you gave me was TFC.
Yeah, Dad, I also want to learn Tagalog or Hiligaynon. My friends call me fake Filipino because I can't speak Tagalog. Oops. Sorry, the adults are talking about that.
Burn, anak, back to you. Apo, you might not be physically in the Philippines, but sometimes being a Filipino is something you can find inside you and carry around wherever you are. Like how you always crave for Lola's pancit molo.
Chelsea, if you want to know more about the Philippines, then why don't you study there?
Because I'm not comfortable to live there now. Nahihirapan na ako mag-Tagalog and even Ilonggo. Mom didn't teach me either.
So, am I right to say that it's better to focus on your life here than looking back or understanding your past?
I'm trying my best to integrate here. If you only knew how hard it is. What I'm trying to say, Dad, is if we can still live in the present while learning about our past, I think that'll make me a better person, don't you think? If I don't understand your reasons for moving here, do you think I'll be able to be at peace with my reality? Learning about where I came from will help me write the future that I want for myself.
True that, anak.
Tama nga naman ang anak mong si Chelsea. Hindi niya kailangang kalimutan ang kanyang nakaraan para maka-adapt sa bago niyang mundo. Eh, di ba, may kasabihan tayo, ang hindi lumingon sa pinanggalingan ay hindi makakarating sa paroroonan. Pero seriously, Chelsea, naaalala mo pa ba ang mga kwento ko?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, because of your stories, when I was still a little girl, I got inspired to study visual communications. I want to be an illustrator for books or do some animations like that and your stories, Lola. I dream them to be my first published illustration.
Ate, tell me, what are those stories?
Well, when I was your age, Lola and I used to have our own story time together, just us. It's all about the adventures of princes and princesses, stories about mermaids, a maiden in a magical forest, where I came from, fantasies and magic.
Okay, so that's the short excerpt reading of the play Lola Basyang, which was performed by 63 Collective. One of our actors, Richelle, is actually here. She performed with us. And so the research explores the struggle of second-generation migrant kids in the UAE on how they dealt and navigated their identities to further connect to their roots as Filipinos. And as we were devising this play, we came across the word heritage language. Let me just check. Sorry, my notes. So, heritage language, which means it is your ancestors' language, but you are not fluent or proficient enough to speak. Instead, you have mastered another language. So that's why I picked this specific excerpt, because it exhibits the heritage language.
I think for the people who are watching online and for the non-Filipinos in the audience, there will be some time at the end where we delve more and discuss what exactly the nuances of being a Filipino outside of the Philippines and our identity. But please go ahead with the rest of your piece, Trixie. We thoroughly enjoyed this whole reading of the play.
Maybe we can stage it again. Okay, so and then special mention to the people who are leading 63 Collective, which is Juan Gonzalez and Jomel Reyes. So yeah, and I can also have a little storytelling excerpt. It's gonna be in Filipino. But yeah. Ang mga, it's part of Severino Reyes, ang mga kwento ni Lola Basyang, and it's ang binibining tumalo sa mahal na hari. Ang mga kwento natin ngayon ay pinamagatang ang binibining tumalo sa hari mula sa mga kwento ni Lola Basyang ni Severino Reyes na muling sinalaysay ni Christine S. Belen. Noong unang panahon, sa isang kaharian sa Tondo ay mayroong dalagang balita sa ganda at talino. Anak si Sharay ni Tasan, na isa sa mga utusan ng hari. Maraming binatang nanliligaw sa kanya at isa na rito ang anak ni Datu Abdul. Alam ba ninyo, bawal dati ang magkapagpangasawahan ang dalawang taong hindi magkauri sa lipunan? Ngunit, hindi mapipigilan ng Datu ang pangingibig ng kanyang anak kay Sharay. Hindi po lamang kagandahan niya ang nagkabighani sa akin, kundi pati na ang kanyang mabuting ugali at katalinuhan, sabi ng prinsipe sa Datu. Nabuo ang isang plano sa Datu. Dadaanin niya sa pagsubok ang binibini. Inutusan niya sila Mukot. Hindi ito dapat malaman ng ninuman, utos ng Datu. Nanginig sa takot sila Mukot. Para na rin kasi niyang anak si Sharay, dahil anak ito ng kaibigan niyang si Tasan. Masiglang sumalubong si Sharay kay Lamukot nang makita ito sa bungad ng kanilang bahay. Ipinag-utos ng mahal na Datu na lutuin mo raw ang pipit na ito ng 12 putahe. Kamatayan ang parusa kapag hindi mo nasunod ang utos. Parang kinurot ang puso nila Mukot sa dalang balita. Hindi naman napawi ang sigla ng binibini. Tinanggal niya ang kanyang ipit sa buhok saka inabot kay Lamukot. Pakisabi sa mahal na Datu na gawin muna niyang 12 pinggan at panandok ang aking ipit upang mapaglagyan at maipagkuha ng 12 putahe ng pipit na lulutuin ko. Sagot ni Sharay. Muling pinabalik ng Datu sila Mukot kinabukasan. Ang ipinag-utos naman niya ay ibalik ng buhay ang isang tupa kapalit ng isang garapitang ginto. Siyempre, nagawa na naman ni Sharay. Nainis na naman ang dato. Pagkatapos, meron na namang naisip ang dato. Pinapunta niya ulit sila Mukot. May sakit ang dato at nangangailangan ng gatas ng lalaking kalabaw para siya ay gumaling. Ikaw, Sharay, ang napili niyang maghanap nito. Pinagpawisan sila Mukot sa matinding utos ng dato. Samantala, nagpasabi noon ang dato sa buong kaharian na walang sino man ang magliligo o maglalabas sa ilog kinabukasan dahil maliligo siya. Nang gabing yon, kinatay ni Sharay ang alagang baboy sa banig ng kanyang ama. Maagang maaga kinabukasan ay nagtungo na siya sa ilog upang labhan ang banig na punong-puno ng dugo. Sobrang galit ang dato nang umagos sa kanyang pinagliliguan ang dugo. Ipinag-utos niyang hulihin ang mga taong naglaba. Nagulat siya nang si Sharay ang nadakip ng mga gwardya. Ano ang dahilan at naglalaba ka ng banig? Hindi mo ba alam na ipinagbabawal ko ang paglalaba at paliligo ngayon? Sabi ng dato. Paumanin po, mahal na dato. Ngunit hindi ko dapat ipagpaliban ang paglalaba ng banig na pinanganakan ng aking ama. Mahinahong sagot ni Sharay. Hindi maaaring manganak ang lalaki. Malaki ang butas ng ilong ng dato sa katwiran ng binibini. Kung gayon po, hindi rin maaaring magkaroon ng gatas ang lalaking kalabaw. Mahinahong sagot ni Sharay. Hindi nakaimik ang dato. Pumalakpak ng malakas sila Mukot pati na rin ang mga gwardya. Ibinigay ni Dato Abdul ang kanyang basbas upang maikasal si Sharay at sa prinsipe. Alam niyang magiging katuwang ng kanyang anak ang matalinong binibini sa maayos na pamamalakad ng kanilang bayan. So yeah, that's one part. And as you can see, I don't speak Tagalog that well. So, yeah, going back to languages, I grew up in a small city called Bacolod, and it's in the West Visayas region. And we speak Hiligaynon. I speak Hiligaynon for 25 years daily in my life, and sprinkled some English, Filipino in between. But I was born and bred in the Philippines, but my family, my mom has been here for 20 years in the UAE. And after that, I came here few years after I graduated. And then when I came here to work, I had struggles with code switching. So, yeah. So, switching from one language to another, you go home, they speak Hiligaynon, you go out, some people speak Filipino, some people speak Bisaya, and at work, people speak English. So, it was more of a culture shock for me. So, I made this poem called IVR. An ode to my code switch brain. Hello, and thank you for calling Sunflower Sunshine Hotline. Please choose your preferred language. Press 1 for Hiligaynon, press 2 for English, press 3 for Filipino, press 4 for Mandarin, press 5 for Hokkien, and press 6 for Bisaya. Please bear with me while I connect you to all of my tongues. Press 1. Ang akon utok datalang kung ano gamiton magsabat sa imo. Do spaghetti, lambud-lambud. Ang akon dila ginapangita iya nanay ang nag-ili-ili sa iya sang indi pa sa kasampot kag kaisrot kung sa diin una nabatian ang sugilanon sa mga manugbulong, babaylan kag iban nga nagtaliwan. Ang pinakauna nga nagpainchindi sa iya sang kalibutan. But I started pressing 2 because it's needed, because it's an edge, because it's easier, because they said so, because of survival, just because pressing 2 became natural, normal, my tongue slowly weaving its way into the fabric of globalization, and then again, trying to understand the world a little bit better. Or did I? Pinindot ang ikatlo dahil sa Cinema One para makasama sa pakikipagsapalaran ni Jubal, Omar at Sambag papunta ng Samadhi. Buto kalansay, tabi-tabi po sa bangkay, lulubog, lilitaw sa saradong hukay. Dahil sa Eraserhead, sa magazine, sa Alapaap, sa huling El Bimbo para sa masa, para kay Julina Magdangal, Chuba Chuchu, at para maintindihan ang mundong hinabi ni Pepe. Ang makilala si Sisa at Maria Clara sa iyong mga pahina at para na din siguro patunayan na hindi ako mas malansa sa isda. Unti-unti na kitang nauunawaan, Pepe. It's daunting pressing 4 now. Rusty. 我很长时间没说中文了. Like visiting someone you haven't seen and spoken for a long time. Drifted apart. For some mystical reason, the connection is still there. 我保不了. Maybe because life started there. 朋友已乐器，老师们教导人生. The religion was learning. Embedded in some parts of me, I press 5, press 1, press 2 simultaneously. My cousins call me Ati, Duati, Tipa. I wait for Ang Pao every Chinese New Year. Bacolaudiat is still celebrated in our city every year. Year of the Dragon, realizing the oldest Chinatown in the world is in our country. Nagsugod ko press 6. Pareho raman ang words when pressing 1. Pero ang karon kag karon, lahi. The time for later is now. Nadula ka sa dula, lost in a game but not losing. Naningkamot man ko para madunggan ko nimo, daghan pa kaayo akong dapat matun-an. Magsagol-sagol man kog press 1, press 6, kag press 2. Back to 2. Wherever I am, I will keep pressing these buttons as my tongue craves for more, as my tongue craves of home, of soul-feeding gastronomy, a bowl of kansi, continuously slurping the marrow out of my life with Henry and Robbie. You may press 0. I am ready for you. And to close, it's Philippine Independence Day. Literatures and paintbrushes awaken our ancestors' thirst for freedom. Regimes rise and fall, but art with a greater purpose is immortal.
I think Trixie deserves a bigger applause than that. Can you clap for her again? That was amazing. For those who are not used to what we were like, you probably saw us doing this while she was reading. You probably don't know why we were doing it, but this is how we show appreciation when somebody reads poetry. It encourages the poet who is speaking. That was very good. She wrote that all by herself, y'all, with all her tongues. It was amazing. So. We'll be speaking more to Trixie about everything that she's performed a little bit later. But for now, we're going to move on with Roseanne Rayodica Juan, who will be performing her original work on bridging the Filipino identity with the world, diaspora, and our taste buds. And because I wasn't reading from my work and I decided to read from Barbara Jane Reyes, she did say that she was going to read from my work. Thank you for that. And because she will be reading poetry, remember, we can do this if you like what she's saying. Please give a round of applause for Roseanne Rayodica Juan.
Hello? Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, MBRL, and thank you, Danabel. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, the Philippines, for our tongue. And thank you for our heart for independence and liberation, even if sometimes we try to mix both up and confuse the things. I'm going to start first with Terrace Across the Earth, written by Miss Danabel Gutierrez, and a poem here is Teaching My Lover How to Love in Filipino. Context is not of the work, but of our relationship. She prefers me to talk about her work, but I would like to grab this opportunity to thank her for paving the way for us Filipinos. She has been a very strong foundation in the literary scene, in the poetry scene, by shining light on the different works and individuals and stories and struggles and triumphs that we all have. For the longest time, this is how the diaspora is struggling with. Where do we fit in? How do we belong? How do we find our way home through words? So, thank you. And this poem is how I hear it every time she wonderfully, and goosebumpsly performs it, is that way of bridging the word as how I feel it. Bridging the word of our word to your understanding. Teaching My Lover How to Love in Filipino by Danabel Gutierrez. In Tagalog, we have a verb called tahan. This means to cease crying. Tahanan is home, the place where you stop crying, where misery does not have a seat saved at the table, where love offers you a glass of water, rocks you back to comfort, to calm. So darling, know that when I ask you to come home, I mean, give me your sadness. Let me dance with it in my arms until I lull it to sleep. I mean, my shoulders are your handkerchief. My lap is your lanai, and it may rain and the lights may go out, but we will be drenched in the dark together, decorating the stars with our fondest memories. Mahal, in Tagalog, the word for love and expensive, are the same thing. And it sounds like a joke, but really, when I say minamahal kita, I mean I am lavishing you. My love is crowning you king. In Filipino, ibig is to mean, to want. Ibig is wood, pag-ibig is love, and ibig sabihin is meaning. And all of this is just to say that when all languages have lost their meaning, when I tell you, tahan na sinta. Dry your tears, darling. Sumuko sa pag-aarugang naghihintay sa iyong pag-uwi. Surrender to the care, the tender, waiting for you to return home. Nakahain ang pag-ihirog sa mesa na kahit kailay di mauubos, hindi man lalamig. Love is set out on the table and it will never run out or ever grow cold. Lover, when I tell you I love you, iniibig kita, what I mean to say is, I want to, I would, I mean, I am meant to. Can you believe this piece of work? Thank you. Thank you for creating this. Oh my God, you should try this sometime. Like reading it in front of the author and actually reading it aloud for the first time, and I was just like, tears across the earth, but also tears across my face. Thank you. That means okay, you need some water. Love is set out on the table. Nakahain. So this piece is also about bridging, because I realized that when I moved here, actually context is I was born in Saudi Arabia. And then and then I moved back to the Philippines, and then I didn't know how to speak Tagalog. So they put me in an international school. But the language that I was brought up in is food. So even if we were in Saudi, while I was enjoying my kabsa, I was having adobo with it as well. And then moving to the UAE, it's also a lot of, not adjustment in the larger sense, because it's like Manila as well. Like everywhere you go, there is a Filipino. But it's when you're in the working environment where suddenly you have to really live the melting pot that they keep saying about the UAE. I come from a family of overseas Filipino workers. So it's always about the struggle and the triumph of learning to say same, in my culture too, same. Just to, have that connection. Solidarity. Yes. So here it is. Thank you. It always feels like same, different. When I build the bridge from my brown to your white, everyone on YouTube will clickbait Jollibee, wanting us to clap for someone who grew up with beige roasts to celebrate red, sweet, sticky hot dog spaghetti. When you build your bridge from your caramel skin to my indigenous gray tan, you will tease me to say, "Oh, I love chicken adobo." In this region, I will try my best to explain that it is similar to biryani or mandi or kubide, kabsa maybe, but not in the manner of acidic vinegar slow cooking in 1,000 pounded garlic, but in the manner that every grandma has the recipe that brings everyone home. And not one restaurant will be the best in it. Our tables are long and the cutlery clinking, and it feels like a potluck of belonging. With our luggages stacked in our rented apartments, everyone has their own baggage. Same, me too. Oh yes, ours too. It comes with a passport. To find yourself melting with someone else, do not stick out. Instead, form a sticky alliance. Yesterday, probably a slow news day, I read that a bride and groom asked their guests to pay for their own food. In Japan and Korea, this was commonplace. I can hear my ancestors rolling in their wooden coffins and provincial inexpensive cemetery plots. Never do that at your own wedding, what a shame. And I imagine how they all just said, "Yes, yes, master," to the colonizers. Even if our skin is marked with a bamboo pounded ink by a woman centenarian, a tribe of warriors eating smoked meat with worms. And yet we will line up to meekly say, "Can you please grant me a visa?" Are we still talking about weddings now? If we are, please remember that the bride and groom in my country will accept cash gifts only or maybe a fat cow. We will never make you pay for your own food even if we become ruthless after a lavish wedding. But who am I to say all this, when in fact weddings aren't the problem here, but how we sometimes mix our P's and F's, like how we do independence and liberation, tied down ironically to raise the flag. My Filipino patriotism got surprised when someone told me he hated adobo. Hated. Not even didn't like, but hated. What a relief to not be flattered finally. We will find our common ground in something else beyond food. We will create Filipino Facebook community pages to feature half Filipinos thriving in the West. We will be proud to say we are the largest second population in Greenland. We reached there. We will make our words in repeat for you to say easily. Halo-halo, salo-salo, sari-sari, Tito Junjun. While we all live under the same sky, unfortunately, we share the same water body with countries who try to steal the West Philippine Sea. That when the same fish ends up in our sinking boats, we dry it so stinky and fry it to ward off season 65 of Country Robbers. But not you, because you get a Filipino, the whole world gets a Filipino. We're culture chameleons, and in this constant diaspora, we thought we'd find ourselves and make our mark in the world. Fortunately, we ended up meeting the Filipino in you, kabayan. Thank you.
Oh my goodness. I think she deserves another round of applause. Keep it going, please. I love Roseanne's work always because she really roots it in food, which we can all kind of relate to, you know, like it's just, and a lot of Filipinos that I've spoken to who are outside of the Philippines do say that part of the way that they hold on to their culture is through food. Even half Filipinos say that that's how they hold on to their culture. But more on that later. We won't jump into the panel now. We'll get through other people's work first. Next up, we have Benj Marlowe. who will be presenting prose and poetry about the mythical Bakunawa and how it resonates with his experience as an overseas Filipino worker. He will be reading Damiana Eugenio's retelling of the original Bisaya story, Ang Bakunawa, written by Fernando A. Beiser in 1913, followed by his own poem, The Moon Eater. He will also be reading works by writers from his hometown, General Santos City, Might of the Kind by J.B. Palma, a poet and fungal systemacist, based in the Philippines, and Paano Magsakay at Maghintay Maglarga ang Tricycle. I love that. A series of essays by Jade Marca Piñanes, author of the flash fiction collection How to Grieve, and writer of the Palanca Award-winning essay A Portrait of a Young Man as Banak. He will finish with the presentation. Finish his presentation with a reading of his own poem, The Wanderer. Please give a big round of applause for Benj Marlowe.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, MBRL. Thank you so much, Danabel, for inviting me. It's an honor to represent Jensen. I mean, I put the pressure on myself. It's my choice. But yeah, I'm very happy to be here. Very happy to show you my work, show you the works of my friends, my writers, like my writer friends back home. So to start, this is a poem by my dear friend J.B. Palma. Might of the Kind. Ravaging like omnipotent waves here, this dark darkness creeps, stalks, and feeds on the fragile cliff that we are. A synchronous dance, a way to death, a treacherous kiss. We gladly take it in, but tomorrow's not far. We bathe in a crimson lake that doesn't stain our togas, for this lake is ethereal, our dry skin divine. Send all the unknown faces in windowless bodegas. Call the animals. Witness the might of the kind. Allow the shadow to cover this land, to flood this plain of people with no faces who hid in their cage, sing their songs, remember their names, but bury their children and the offspring of their children, fruit of the sage. Let the benevolence of the murk hide their battle scars, to silence their mouths before they unleash their cry. Slit the throat of Commander Liwayway to end her wars, so as to impale her womb so she wouldn't try. Here in the stillness of the air, out in the cold open, we plow this barren earth where they used to run free, to plant these seeds that will eventually feed our children, whose youth invigorates their need for mutiny. Yet here in the stillness of the cold air in the open, their shut eyes awaken from a now distant dream. Liwayway bore her own children, taught them how she lived then, how she fought life for life. Life trembled when she came. But the earth is still soaked with the blood of lost faces, fueling all the grieving with a peaceful rage. They marched and marched until no one cared to track the traces, for it is in resonance can they only break their cage. The stark darkness is still vast and owning, still ravaging. Its ebony talons are masking the blind trail. Liwayway's children marched, and then came the morning. Darkness screeched and curled. Its spite won't leave this veil. Thank you. Love that. Setting the tone. So to proceed, as Danabel mentioned, I will be talking about the Bakunawa myth, which always fascinated me as a child. I don't know, for some reason, I always loved mythology, Greek mythology, Egyptian mythology, Philippine mythology, particularly the Bakunawa myth. I don't know, there's just something about it that I like. So now I'm gonna do one short story, a retelling by the mother of Philippine folklore, Damiana Eugenio, which is a translation by Iroa from Fernando A. Boiser's Mga Sugilanong Karaan. This is The Moon and the There were then 7 moons in the heavenly kingdom when Bakunawa, the huge serpent that rules the seas, first fell in love with them. From this dark retreat among the caverns, many a time he had gazed with wonder and admiration at the 7 sisters as they traversed the windy blue and yearned to possess them. If he could only swallow them and thus be the eternal possessor of them. One night he flew and swallowed one of the moons and came down to earth again in fiery haste. Months had passed when the moon he had swallowed melted. He tried to get another. He succeeded, but this too melted away. He tried again. He tried 6 times, and he succeeded 6 times, but 6 times also the precious booty melted away. Meanwhile, Bathala became conscious of the mysterious disappearance of the moons. He tried to find out what had happened to them, but failed. One night, he was awakened by a deafening sound of drums and the shouts of men and women. He woke up and he saw that the last moon was being swallowed by Bakunawa, and the whole earth was in consternation, for it was in complete darkness. Hearing the shouts and the noise, Bakunawa left the moon and went back to his cavern in haste. So a moon was left soaring in the skies, and to prevent Bakunawa from swallowing it up, Bathala planted a bamboo tree in its midst. And still the bamboo tree can be seen as a dark spot in the face of the moon. Bakunawa has never given up. At times he tries again to swallow it up, but the people are always on alert. They shout and make all sorts of noise when he tries to do so, and it is supposed that as long as the bamboo tree is not killed, he cannot succeed in his malicious enterprise. That's it. So I came upon another version of this story, but this time a modern version. This is Bakunawa by Dr. Jenny Ortuste. She's a Palanca and an NJLA award-winning author. This is an excerpt. After the battle of the 2 high gods ceased, a great massing was seen in the heavens, as Bulan and Lakapati, Mayari and Tala, Amanikable and Ikapati, Aman Sinaya, the 4 malevolent agents of Sitan, and the other inhabitants of the celestial world and underworld stood together to aid Bathala's creations on the day of their calamity. Friend and foe alike joined forces, and even the lord of typhoons, Buhawi, kept peace with his enemy Habagat. The god of illness, Bibit, received the appeal of the gathered deities, but he denied sending the infestation to the earth. His partner, Linga, the god of healing, spoke. The altering of the seasons caused by humankind loosened this scourge, and my power availeth not against it. I cannot heal it, be halted. And the gods and goddesses despaired until Amihan spoke. O lords and ladies, there is one of us who is not present, and it is the lady Bakunawa. Perhaps her power over the wind and sea can be of aid on this day of calamity. But Hala was wroth, and his countenance fell, and he spoke, The serpent goddess is wise and powerful, but she lends her might to destruction. Witness her everlasting desire to devour the moons and the Lord Bulan. Lakapati declared, Yet this is a time for desperate measures, and the Lady Bakunawa's power is such that many of us cannot match. And thus said Bathala, In sooth, Lakapati, do you go, my friend Amihan, and call the lady to our side. And Amihan spread her encompassing wings and journeyed to the abode of the serpent goddess. To her they gave the message of the deities. They spoke of the plight of the Sangkatauhan and how the deities had banded together for their sake. And the goddess listened and said, To their plea I shall respond. So it came to pass that the Lady Bakunawa, the serpent goddess, rose from the depths of the sea, past the realm of Kasamaan, into the heights of Kaluwalhatian to join the congregation of deities. Hastily did the goddess Halia hide the gentle god Bulan, who Bakunawa had long sought to devour. Thank you. So just to give some context, I decided to perform these two different versions of the story because oftentimes we only hear one version and some people think it's gospel. Some people like will assume, okay, it's the truth. I believe it. But the thing with stories is like stories change. Stories are being told by, like they say, history is being told by the victors. Like stories change to like that's the way we pass down stories from generations to generations. And reading the short story, the retelling, made me reassess what Bakunawa really means to me, like why it resonates with me. As an OFW, as a person from General Santos City, like my childhood was different. I was very, not sheltered, but sheltered. So when I came here in Dubai 8 years ago now, I think 2016, my mind was just like blown open. Like I was exposed to different cultures, different languages, different people, and my perspective changed. I wasn't the same person as I was 8 years ago. I'm always changing. Like I wasn't even the same person as yesterday. But yeah, this is the Moon Eater. This is how the story goes. Boy leaves home. Boy finds himself. Boy doesn't know where home is anymore. 7 moons ago, akong nadamguhan ang among balay sa una. I'm back in the city I used to dream about, like a river finding its way to sea. I'm an ocean, and I carry so much, sometimes I create my own gravity. 6 moons ago, dili na ko kabalo mo uli. It's raining inside my lungs and I want to condense myself. Just pour all thunder and water and be weightless. How do I do this without running empty? 5 moons ago, nakalimot na ko asa mo adto. I'm a tourist now, picking up ref magnets to freeze moments I'm already missing, collecting fragments of a life unlived, lives my mind would just soon forget. 4 moons ago, gimingaw na ko sa kaniadto. Before, when I would sing, hymns come out, and now, dirges. Self-written, no one to listen, I compose myself like a melody I can't play in case my father is listening. 3 moons ago, murag dili na nako kaya. When my waves come, and they will, here's a raft made of my bones. Signal number 5, I'm also the typhoon. Take it to shore, you're not safe with me. 2 moons ago, ingani ang dagan sa istorya. This is how the story goes. Boy leaves home, boy finds himself, boy becomes moon and moon eater, 1 moon left. Hangtod diri na lang. No dragon of legend, no dying wish asking me to swallow myself, and yet here I am, eclipsing. I'm no stranger to this. I know how the story goes, for what awaits me, if not snakeskin, jaws, and a cage of gold, iuli kanamo ang among bulan. All the villagers scream, young and old, please, please, please return our moon. Their songs discordant and unholy, come back home, we misuse, laced with honey and mercury, dili na ko muuli. Boy is villain and savior. Boy is moon and moon eater. Boy is soaring in the night sky, and boy will once again shine. Thank you. Thank you. So, fun fact, I edited this poem last night. Rereading the Dr. Jenny Ortusta's version, I don't know, stirred something in me, and I changed things in this, like just to add. I mean, a friend told me art is never finished, like only abandoned. So it's like I'm a perfectionist. I always change my poems, even though I've already published or performed some of them. So let's change the tone up again. Sorry for the sad vibes. So just for context again, in General Santa City, where I'm from, like many cities in the Philippines, it's a melting pot of like different peoples, different languages. So I grew up speaking Tagalog at home. But, well, remember when I said I was sheltered? So we lived, we lived in a compound. My family, like we live in a compound which housed a church, and I wasn't allowed to go out of the compound. So we spoke Tagalog at home. I learned English watching Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon, and I learned Bisaya when I started school, because that's like generally people in Jansan speak Bisaya, but since a lot of people also speak Tagalog, a lot of people also speak Ilonggo, Ilocano, Kapampangan. Generally, how general, like people from General Santa City are called generals, by the way. So generally, how generals speak is a combination of Tagalog and Bisaya. And now I'll be reading a series of essays by Jade Marca Piñanes. The first one is, Paano magsakay at maghintay maglarga ang tricycle? Biglang naghinto ang tricycle sa kanto. Nagbaba ang driver at nagtawag ng mga pasahero. Bukod sa kanya, dalawa lang kasi kami na nasa loob ng tricycle, na 6 ang kanyang isakay o isiksik. Akala ko madali lang siya maghinto, pero naglagpas na lang ang 10 minuto, hindi pa din naglarga. Wala pa din kasing ibang nagsakay. Medyo nainip na ako. Gaupo sa front seat at gatingin-tingin sa relo, 6:20 p.m. na. Dapat 6:30 p.m. nasa downtown na ako. Madalas nasa 30 minuto ang biyahe, kaya baka lampas 7 na ako magdating doon. Wait lang ha, gitext ko ang kaibigan kong gahintay sa downtown. Naghinto kasi ang tricycle, gipaliwanag ko. Walang problema, gireply ng kaibigan ko. Wala namang deadline, gidagdag niya pa. Nahalata yata ng driver ang pagkainip ko. Hintay lang ha, gisabi niya. 2 pasahero na lang, gihangyo niya. Hindi ako nagsagot. Nagdaan pa ang mga nasa 10 minuto, may nagsakay ng dagdag na 2 pasahero. Nagsakay na ulit ang driver sa tricycle at gipaandar niya ito. Salamat, giisip ko, maglarga na talaga. Pero akala ko lang pala. Naghintay pa din kasi ng dagdag na pasahero ang driver. Gusto ko mang magalit pero hindi ko magawa. Giisip ko na lang na habang gamadali akong magpunta sa downtown para magkita kami ng kaibigan ko, alam kong kailangan lang din ng driver na halos kaedad ko lang yata na magkita ng pera. Mabilis kong mainis na mabangga ako sa daan kapag gamadali ako. Akala ko siguro na sa akin lang gaikot ang mundo. Na ang ibang tao ay harang lang sa kung saan ko gusto magpunta. Pero hindi lang man yata ako ang may nabangga. Hindi lang man yata ako ang may puntahan. 20 ang pamasahe ng tricycle galing sa amin papunta sa downtown. 20 lang din ang pagitan ng desisyon ng driver na maglarga o maghintay pa ng isang pasahero. Maya-maya ay may nagsakay na isang dagdag na pasahero at gipalarga na talaga ng driver ang tricycle. Habang gatingin ako sa driver na diretsyo at seryoso ang tingin sa daan, giisip ko na baka ginaisip niya din na pagkatapos ng biyahe niya ngayon ay may mauwi na siya sa kanila, kahit maliit, kahit papano. At naalala ko lang bigla ang commercial ng Cornetto. Hanggang saan mag-abot ang 20 mo? Alam ko na yata kung saan. The second essay, paano magpara ng tricycle at mapagkamalan? Ako na magdala ng gamit mo, gisabi ko sa kanya. Kasi gentleman ako. Nagpara kami ng tricycle at nag-upo kaming 2 sa may front seat. Gikandong ko ang shoulder bag niya at ang isang supot kung saan niya gilagay ang sandal niyang naputol ang strap. Ihatid ko siya pa uwi. Mga ilang minuto sa biyahe, may nakita kaming checkpoint sa unahan. Ginapara at ginapahinto ng mga sundalo ang mga gadaan. Martial law na talaga, gisabi ko sa sarili. Gikabahan ako kasi baka maghanap sila ng ID. Wala akong dalang ID. Pero giisip ko na lang na at least wala akong kamukhang miyembro ng maute. Gipara na kami ng sundalo. Naghinto ang tricycle namin pero bigla lang din itong naglarga. Gituktok ng sundalo ang gilid ng tricycle, sabay hangyo sa driver. Huwag ka magmadali. Nag-brake, pinabigla ang driver. Pakibukas ng mga bag nyo, gisabi ng sundalo. Sabay bukas ng flashlight niya. Giuna ng sundalo ang mga pasahero sa likod, pagkatapos sa likod, sa front seat naman. Buksan mo, bag mo, gisabi ng sundalo sa akin. Gusto ko sana sabihin na hindi sa akin ang shoulder bag, pero baka isipin ng sundalo na defensive o may ginatago ako. Gibuksan ko na lang ang shoulder bag. Nagtambad sa sundalo ang pulbo, lipstick, salamin at ilan pang gamit na hindi akin. Hindi ako nagtingin sa kanya. Ano ang laman niyan? Gisabi ng sundalo. Habang gaturo sa supot na nakakandong ko. Gibuksan ko ang supot, gitutok ng sundalo ang flashlight at nakita niya ang sandal na naputol ang strap. Wala na siyang sinabi. Gituktok ulit ng sundalo ang gilid ng tricycle. Naglarga na ulit ang tricycle. Hindi pa kami masyado nakalayo nang nagtingin ako ulit pabalik sa checkpoint. Nakatingin pa din pala ang sundalo sa tricycle namin. Tapos nagtagpo ang mga mata namin. Iba ang titig niya. Thank you. Gitok-tok. So, yeah, working here, I don't know if I'm doing it consciously, but I don't try to mask my Bisaya accent, but when I speak Tagalog, I hear different opinions actually. Some people say, "Oh, you're Bisaya pala. I didn't know. Like I couldn't hear it from your accent." Like as if that's a compliment. And some people say, "Oh, actually alam ko na Bisaya ka, halata ko sa accent mo," which is like super confusing to me. But I don't know if it's the environment, if it's the people, or if it's just shame because speaking Bisaya people have a very strong accent, and people oftentimes make fun of that, which I don't know. It could be because there's shame in that subconsciously. I'm not sure, but I know that I'm not masking my accent. Like this is just how I speak, but yeah, I don't know. There's something I think that we can talk about with that later. So I'll leave you with this poem. I always say when I perform this, I always say, because I wrote this back in 2017, when I was planning on going home to the Philippines for the first time. I always say this poem is like a self-fulfilling prophecy because I never imagined that this would be exactly how it would feel when I went home. This is called The Wanderer. In the pursuit of the unknown, you have become a stranger in your own home. Cornfields, once familiar and friendly, are now a maze to your roaming feet. You forget the yellow of corn is the brick road that leads to somewhere green, but where is home? You start to wonder. If its arms are still as open as when you left to fly to your version of an escape from expectations, you now find yourself belonging in places beyond your city limits. Maybe home is where tiny parts of your soul remain untouched by the world. Like happiness, found in the violet of fields where love was once declared, the pink of crushed corals between your toes, remnants of a child free from fear. Hope in the walls of an abandoned church where a man first communed with God. Tocino sizzling in a pan, a sign of a circle once unbroken. So, what are you really looking for? A reprieve? A thumbs up? A changed mind? Maybe home is where parts of you meet again and for just a moment heal. So you keep wondering, where is home? And how do I get there? Thank you.
Please keep it going for Benj. That was beautiful. Thank you for taking us on a trip. Around, like from mythology to General Santos City and then to wandering. Beautiful. Thank you so much. I have some questions for you later in the panel. I'm very excited. But before we go, we are going to move on to Liz Gonzalez, who will be talking about Hinilawod, Tales from the Mouth of Halawod River. Hinilawod is one of the many pieces of oral literature passed from one generation to the next, changed and morphed by the chanter to one degree or another. Kind of similar to what Benj was saying about how versions of stories keep evolving. Hinilawod is a source of information about culture, religion, and rituals of the ancient people of Sulod in central Panay, Philippines. She will also read an excerpt from F. Shonil Jose's The God Stealer, side I though, to connect it with themes of identity and belonging present in Hinilawod and even contemporary literature. I'm just joking. But you know, please give a round of applause for Liz Gonzalez.
Hello. Thank you, MVRL, for having us, and thanks to our friends here. Thank you. Before I begin, as Benj was saying earlier, that storytelling, it gets passed down from generation to generation, but to some degree, the kind of story changes. The gist is still there, but some details might get lost in translation or interpretation and whatever. So during the pre-colonial times and until now, the Suludnon, the indigenous peoples in Central Visayas, Philippines, where I'm from, they have binukot, which literally translates to veiled women. But yeah, bukot. Like these women are secluded from society. Their feet don't touch the ground because they're like of nobility status. So the community chooses who is the binukot gonna be. And this is a young maiden and she will never marry. There are instances where they can marry, but then they would be called nabukot, which we will talk maybe later. But mostly they're bunukot, unmarried women, and they are tasked to store all their religious and cultural practices. So they are the cultural caretakers of the community. That's what they do. And even now, they still do it, but it's not as rigid as it was before. And one of the oral tradition they've kept is Hinilawod, Tales from the Mouth of Halawod River. And you know how in creation stories, it's all about flooding. If you're a Christian back home, if you read the Bible, if you've read it at some point, the story of Noah, the ark, it's all about flooding, and then the creation myth starts like pouring. That's how it is with people Suludnon. Sulod means inside, from the inside of the mountains. And from Lambunao, regions in Iloilo, Lambunao and Capiz, they are called Panayanon or Bukidnon. But from where I'm from, Antique, we are called Iraynon Bukidnon. So Sulod from Iraynon Bukidnon Mountains. And one of the most famous chant is this, Hinilawod. This is the tale of three brothers, three demigod brothers, born to a mortal Datu father and a goddess mom. So yes, I'll be reading just a very short excerpt for context, how they came to be and whatever. So when goddess Alunsina, also known as Laun Sina, Laon, from my language, means maiden, unmarried, spinster. It's a derogatory. So when goddess Aluncina came of age, her father Kaptan decreed that she marry. So and also for context, we have this idea that before gods and mortals lived together in harmony, we all lived in the same space, right? So when it was decreed that the prettiest goddess in all town of Hollywood, all country of Hollywood is set to marry, she's of age, gods and mortals vied for her hand. However, the lovely Diwata goddess, she didn't choose any of the gods, but she chose a mortal, Datu Paubari. And he's the ruler of Hollywood. This, of course, angered the gods, and they all plotted to ruin the wedding. So, yes, Maklum Satwan is Lord of the Plains, and he said, yes, let's flood Hollywood so they can't get married. And however, with the aid of Suklang Malayon, he is the guardian of happy homes. He warned both Aluncina and Dato Paubari that, flood is coming, move, leave, and they did. So they were able to escape. Now, a few months after the flood, Dato Paubari and Aluncina were like, okay, let's see the vibe, So they went down to the plains again and decided to settle there because people, the heat isn't there anymore. People have forgotten them. So they resided by the mouth of the Halawud River because river is where life is, right? Like you grow vegetables, you grow food, that's where you settle. And shortly after they settled, Aluncina got pregnant. And she told Paubari to prepare the siklot. Siklot is the things you prepare for the rituals to give birth. And with the help of a babaylan, high priest, Bungot Banwa, that's the name of the high priest, Aluncina, Dato Paubari, they performed the rites for her to get, to birth their children. Bungot Banwa, she burnt alanghiran and kamangyan. You know what that is? It's a native incense. And just a gust of northern wind blew, and poof, the infants became men. Just like that, in an instant. A few days later, so we have 3 brothers, Labaw Dunggon, Humadapnon, and Sikay Padalugdog. So these are the 3 brothers. Labaw Dunggon, because like a second after giving, after being birthed by his mom, became a man, he wanted to travel, and that's what he did. He in search of a wife. He traveled, and he wanted to go to Handug, a place near the edge of the mouth of Hollywood River, to vie for the hand of Angoy Ginbitunan. She is a maiden, and he wanted her hand. However, when he asked for the hand of this maiden from Karimlagan, Angoy Ginbitinan's father commanded him to vanquish a huge monster, Manalintad. And you would see, like in this story, how most of Philippine mythology and epics, the creatures, 3-headed monsters, that is also very visible in Western influences. It's very present, even in the pre-colonial Philippines. So, of course, he's the hero, so he was able to slay the monster. Labaw Donggon brought home with him his wife. However, when they arrived home, he left his wife under the care of his mom and proceeded to Tarambang Burok. He wanted, because he heard there's another lady who lived nearby. She is unmarried. He didn't care, okay? It's fine. I'm the son of that one goddess. I could marry whoever I want. So he wanted to marry Abyang Durunoon again. And the guy's like, no, that's my wife. You can't marry her. No, I'm gonna marry someone else. And then he met Malitong Yawa Sinagmaling Diwata. Yawa, in my language, translates directly to devil. And because that's how beautiful she is. She's so beautiful that people think she's a temptress. Malitong Yawa Sinagmaling Diwata. Diwata, like a very beautiful goddess, so beautiful she could be evil. She could be the devil, whatever. And that's how it came to be. And he challenged the husband of Malitong Yawa Sinagmaling Diwata to a duel. He wanted to marry her, even though he's married already, and he lost. Okay, so they were in a duel, and you know how myths are. he put the head of the husband, Saragnayan, under the water for 7 years. He thought, okay, he's dead now. I could marry Malitong Yawa Sinagmaling Diwata. After 7 years, he's still very much alive. And then he imprisoned him in his underground dungeon. Meanwhile, back in Mount Majaas, where his wife is, his brothers learned of his disappearance, and they also went to travel and to save him. And when they traveled, Saragnayan, the husband of this very beautiful goddess, Sinagmaling Diwata, Malitong Yawa Sinagmaling Diwata, they were trying to, of course, like, prevent these guys from rescuing their brother. It's not more of a rescue for them, but it's more like an ego. Like your brother is the strongest. You have your bahag. It's supposed to be powerful. You have this belt from mom from the sky. You're supposed to be powerful. And all of this was happening. And long story short, Dumalapdap and Duyutang fought for 7 months, and then they all won. The thing is, this is a very short rendition, but people like Binokot, they have to learn this since they're 7. So they have to learn this since childhood. You get chosen at 7, and without the influence of the outside world, Binokot didn't realize the pressure of it until researchers, anthropologists came and tried to make them woke and be, oh, this is not very feminist. And I think the concept of the feminism that is very prevalent in the Philippine academia is very white and non-inclusive. It's not that. And I think it's not their fault per se, because that's a kind of literature you also are exposed to. Like, even I myself had, growing up, I had an internalized white feminism that I wasn't aware of until feminism should be more about solidarity, because I can't go there lecturing this Binokot about their culture because I know nothing of it. Because if you're looking at it from the outside perspective, it seems like it is very sexist. But I don't think it is, because they preserve their culture. It's their duty to preserve their culture, and that's the highest honor that you could have. And it's given to a woman. It's given to a woman. It's not given to any man. It's given to a woman. Even their high priestess, Babaylan, is a woman. If you're a man, you have to dress like a woman. But you are a woman. But most of the researchers back home, at least, working in academia and working for these organizations, it makes you realize just how they try to dilute it and make it seem like people are doing it wrong. You have to do it because according to my feminist theory, which doesn't apply, because these people, they've been practicing this for centuries. We don't have the right to dictate them what's right or wrong. But that's what's been happening. And even now, like, the Binokot are trying to, like, rebel, which again, like, that's, you grow and you learn things. But this is like the trend now, and it's very a lot of researchers are banned from entering communities in Iraynon, Bukidnon areas because of this. And I will not read the excerpt for The God Stealer, but I'll just tell you the story. The God Stealer by F. Chanel Jose, which, like, actually, we'll talk about him later, but his story is good. It's always a staple in Philippine literature because of how, as Filipinos living, not only in other countries, but Filipinos living in different places. Like, for me, I'm living in, I was born and raised in Antique, in Panay. I wasn't in the capital, and I have a very strong accent. When I speak in Tagalog, people can tell, oh, she's from that area, because I speak like I'm angry. Yeah. But that's just how it is culturally, and even living in the Philippines, you kind of have to assimilate. You go to a bigger city, you kind of have to assimilate. You try to dilute your accent for fear of getting made fun of. And I think I was doing it consciously. I'm trying to make it seem like I'm not from there, because of the shame associated with it, and like, oh, Bisaya ka, you speak this. And like, in my culture, from my region, there are like aswang monsters who fly through the night. You leave half of your body in the woods, and then you fly. We call it manananggal. That's where I'm from. So like when I was studying, I was 16, 17, I didn't know better. I tried to mask it, like, no, no, no. So I wanted people not to hear that I'm from there. So with the God Stealer, Philip, he even westernized his name. His name is Ipig. He is an Ifugao who worked in Manila. He's working with Sam, an American, very on brand for Uncle Sam. But then Philip wants to assimilate, so he wants people to think he's not from a tribe. So he's Ipig. And then he decided to bring Sam with him to his hometown. And then because Sam gave him a promotion. He wanted to bring Sam and he wanted to just show Sam his culture. And it was clear that Sam was culture shocked. Like people are dressed or not dressed. They're just dressed in bahag, string, G-string. That's how it is, a G-string, and you have just a covering in front of you. And Philip wants to make a good impression, so he's like, you know what, when you go home with me, I'll give you the god statues from back home. And he was so naive, he didn't know that people don't just give it away. It's not just given away, because these are like statues made of real gold, made of real silver, made of real like really nice materials. And when he requested from his grandfather, like, Grandpa, can I just give it to him? Of course, the grandfather didn't. So what he did was he stole the statue just to placate Sam. Oh, he went all the way from Manila to Ifugao. I might as well steal it and give it to him. When Sam heard of it, when Sam knew, like, no, you can't give it to me. It's stolen. You can't give that to me. Give it back to your grandfather. No, I can't give it back to him because then he would know I stole it. Then the next morning, his grandfather found out the statue is stolen. He died of heart attack. And because of too much guilt, Ipig said, I'm not going back to Manila with you, Sam. You have to just make it on your own. And that's how it is. Like, I think for Filipinos, so that's it. Like, he didn't go back to Manila with him, and he forged himself a new god, which is not enough to replace the old one. But I think as Filipinos, we, as you said, like, who said cultural chameleons? We are that, and we try to please everybody that isn't us. And I think it speaks so much of our upbringing and the culture, and that's it. So we will maybe talk about it later, but for now, let's give the floor to Danabel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liz. Please give her a round of applause. I think we've been enjoying ourselves too much. We forgot to keep track of time. So I will have to, unfortunately, ask Jared to cut it a little shorter. His poem. So I'm asking him to read only his poems. He has prepared some poems from other people as well, but for now he will be reading, or he will be presenting a selection of poems that offer insights into the Filipino experience, spanning themes of resilience, identity, memory, and the human condition. And he will be reading his original work. Please give a round of applause for Jared Maxilom.
Because we're conscious of time, I originally wanted to basically present to the audience a selection of poems that have contributed to the diaspora. I think because I really wanted it to contrast with a lot of what was shared by my contemporaries this evening. And I wanted to come at it from different perspectives, but since we're, like I said, we're short on time, unfortunately, I would just be reading my own. I want everyone in the audience to know that Filipino poets have always been there. We have contributed to world literature. I wish I could share that to you this evening. I'll probably just leave or mention a few names later in the panel discussion, but here we go. This one is called Dagta. It's dedicated to Jaime D. Jimenez Sr. Pa, do not ask for directions. The earth still remains hollowed. Pinagpala, fresh, sariwa, spear running through flesh. Hanggat maalala ng sibat ang wasiwas gorilla'd fish. And the compass a tail broken like bread, Shards of light at sacrament breaks fast, holds fast. A prayer beginning to exile, amen. Standing lonely sky, metal scraping, skyscraper, arrows tracing, gun at the roof, balang namahay sa lupa, raw grapefruit, oil doused landscape, horizon, valley-shaped gasps. The distance is a story passed down, trickling lies for a lineage. Bartered to keep you alive, we deceive, Papa. A word will never be kept sacred at the mouth if there is spit. I know you will not reach me, yet you've yet to reach the clearing where sweet grass are blading, breaking morning through canopies, leaves leaving to reach the broken gravity, dancing halfway, sideways, upturned to the ground. I am alienating the instructions to navigate you out the pin turn of desire. Turn your shirt inside out. I am still learning how to point to the stars in their winking. I packed you a bag of calamity. Tinirintas na laman ng niyog, red chili skin, hubad hanggang buto, and sweet potato, bugbog sa lalagyan, moist. I know the light washing the yolk furnished wall smells like rotten victories. I asked the whale that beached your hunger. Nangutan na si imong anak, akong amahan, asked the moon, begging for more light as it inches away, pulgada ng awa with potential, all alms for beauty. Asked the Nara, asking the axe head's grasp. They say we belong to somewhere we cannot see, so cleave, cleave, cleave. The sadja of a phrase to become complete. A sentence abandoned abruptly. I have your word like centavos in my pockets with holes. A cliff imagining a sentence. Banging nananaginip nangungusap, fall kinder to those who were born under the sun. Pa, I was a brother who left nothing to ask of my brother. Kapatid, kapatid, only a century amounting to nothing, to always have zero. Kawalan, there is a list of instructions at the back of your throat and you are swallowing it. The white in this room is a lie washed true in the light. My belongings a pile of books, transits stapled at the head of receipts, photos haunting the edge of the frame. A story akong dila is aching to share. Papalolo begins and ends with a lie. I cut through, pero ang lagkit ng dagta, the blood is too thick. The axe damp with tears, and reached my name at the last syllable, red.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jared. Please give her another round of applause. I joke about this, but jokes are half meant. I always say that Jared is the poet that I want to be when I grow up. He is the youngest one on this panel, but I think, like, we will all agree that he is the most prolific one. Professorship is up there. He's going to be teaching all of us. So we unfortunately have about 5 minutes time for a panel. So I'm going to maybe start with the last one. And how, so I wanted to ask you, because you wanted to read other poets, how, if you could speak briefly about this, because I experienced this growing up in the Middle East as well, how hard it is to find Filipino literature where we are, and how did you navigate through that?
I think I was very privileged to be exposed to the community. It also so happens that the poetry community here also has someone who happens to be Filipino, which is Danabel happens to be one of them, thanks to Danabel. After she is, because I only used to read dead people, she has introduced me to alive people, and that also has expanded to like fellow contemporaries, and I started reading people who happen to be alive, thankfully, and their poetry. And I started to kind of like review it back. I wanted to understand the history of Filipinos in the context of like literature as a whole. you know, not just like literature exclusive to the West, but also to our side. Like, what have we contributed? So I really wanted that to highlight it today. But like, here we are, guys. Like, let's go. Yeah.
But like people can follow you on social media, and he does share a lot of sort of mini lectures on poetry and literature on his stories. So do find him online. I am very grateful. So I like. It's hard to find Filipino literature, but thankfully, and this is not a plug to where we are, but thankfully, we've got MBRL who have books on Filipino literature, and I'm very grateful for that. I was so happy to see Barbara Jane Reyes on that shelf. I was extremely happy. Now, I wanted to ask both Liz and Benj, because they are both Bisaya, or from that region. So I know that being who I am and being where I am, I do have some sort of privilege because I talk the way that I do. I actually do have a poem that that talks about that. Like, would you still respect me if my accent was not my accent? And I know you say, Benj, that you're not consciously masking your accent, but what would you say to people who, I guess, feel ashamed of their accent? And is there a way that they could just embrace it and celebrate it as well? And Liz, that question goes on to you as well.
Well, first of all, I want to say there's no shame in it. Like, that's I mean, that's something I have to say to myself every day. There's no shame in speaking in broken English, in like broken Tagalog, or like they say you butcher something. Like, no, like me personally, I know I can speak 2-3 languages, and like some people who shame other people with broken English only speak one. So like, if we're shaming, let's not shame. That's the point. That's the point I'm making. There's no shame. Like, speak. Communication, like talking to people from different cultures, different corners of the world. Like, I'm happy I'm here in Dubai. I'm happy my perspective has expanded and keeps expanding. And being being a judgmental person will hinder me from like meeting new people or learning new things. So there's no shame in it. There's no shame in speaking Bisaya, having a Bisaya accent. Do it. Yeah.
Yes. It's your accent is your identity. It shows where you're from. And there's no shame. Like, that's your ancestors' language. And the fact that, like, me personally, I can speak 3 Filipino languages fluently. Why would I hide it? Like, if I speak Tagalog and I sound karaya, why? Why would I care? If I speak Tagalog and I sound like I'm Hiligaynon, so what? That means I can speak more than one Filipino language. And it was like a very conscious thing that I was doing in the past, because, yeah, kids could be so cruel. High school wasn't the best for me. But, what Homie Baba said, almost the same but not quite. That's how I speak now. Like, and language is a very powerful ideological machine, right? And almost the same is not quite as okay. That means like colonialization didn't succeed because I still cannot speak the language of the colonizers perfectly. So that's it. Yay.
Thank you so much. And lastly, my final question encompasses to both of you, because you had read that script where you were being called a fake Filipino. Or one of the characters was being called a fake Filipino. So my question to both of you is twofold. Like, you would have experienced that as well because you grew up in Saudi, you went home to the Philippines, and you were not a real Filipino because you don't speak Tagalog. And for you, because you speak, 5 languages, were you ever called a fake Chinese, a fake Hiligaynon? And how do you navigate that as you grew older? Yeah.
I think for me, the fake Filipino was actually in the research of Joshua Oyas. So he sort of coined that term. I don't know if it's existing, but yeah, in his research, he said that that was rampant.
Oh yeah, it exists. I get
Yeah.
called that a lot.
Really? Okay, okay. So I think I was not called fake Filipino. Maybe I perceive myself as fake Chinese at some point. It's just me internally, because there are other kids in school that is practicing that culture, that language, and all that stuff. And for me, I always think that that I'm a bit mediocre, because I went to school there, but culture wise, it's not influencing my family, maybe some bits and pieces of it. So I think it's more of an internal thing to me. But Hiligaynon, I love Hiligaynon. Yeah, so yeah, I think that's it. Just internalization of being a fake Chinese.
I hope you've embraced your Chinese part, and that you no longer think of yourself as fake Chinese.
I sometimes still
Do.
because it's
Okay, we need to work on that.
because Chinoy, a Chinoy thing. So it's
Yeah.
not full-blooded
Filipino.
Chinese
Yeah.
anymore. It's more of a Chinoy thing.
Yeah, yeah, I
So
got you.
I think Chinoy fine, but
Yeah.
Chinese
Yeah.
not really.
Okay,
So yeah.
I got you. And Roseanne?
I think hearing this, I just realized what I'm doing is being fake ashamed.
Okay.
Like I think it's like an inception. Like I'm shy, but I'm not, but I'm shy. Because coming into the workforce, I remember this very clearly. It was my first job in Dubai, and I was told, "Oh, you sound smart for a Filipina." And I was like, "Thank you." It was yeah, it was it was followed up, unfortunately. This is reality. It was followed up with, "Oh, you're not working in McDonald's or Jollibee." Which is no shame to people working. Like in
I know
McDonald's or
I know some people in Jollibee and McDonald's who have university degrees. Like,
exactly. But it was my first
yeah,
what and
Yeah.
why?
yeah, it was like a microaggression in some
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. And I didn't even realize that it was a microaggression. I felt like in my very ignorant new self in the UAE workforce, I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I'm smart for a Filipina." Oh no. And then on the ride home, I'm like, "Wait. What?"
What do you mean by that?
Yeah, yeah. So I think it was like a big jump into maturity and understanding, like knowing when and how to act.
Yeah,
So I would come into a space and I'd read the room and I'd be like, "I'm a
Yeah.
proud Filipina."
yeah,
But then when there are unnecessary painful moments where you're
Yeah.
like, "I'm proud to be a Filipina," but in front of you, "Oh, I'm ashamed to be."
yeah. No, I think it depends. Also, like for me, microaggressions obviously come a lot. I encounter it a lot, but I feel like if it comes from an innocent place, it's like a place of curiosity. Like they've never actually met someone.
Yes.
And that's all right. But then if it's actually, I hate to say it, but someone who is on a higher tier, if you know what I mean, then it becomes a little bit like, well, what do you mean? But yes, anyway. I hate to cut this conversation short, but we are very short on time. Thank you so much for staying and listening to us. Please give a round of applause to our panelists who've read their work and other people's work. And thank you so much to Mohammed bin Rashid Library for allowing us this space to celebrate our culture, and also not just in Tagalog, but also in Hiligaynon and in Bisaya. And it's such a glorious experience to be living in a city that allows us to do this. I am very grateful, and yes, thank you so much. Thank you, guys.
You.